in the custody of the department that you lead. And you, in preparation for today's hearing, you didn't ascertain that number, but you don't know it today?
I don't have an exact figure for you.
Do you have a rough idea?
Sir, what I can tell you
I'm
is...
talking about people who have died in your custody. You don't have the number?
I will get back to you with the number.
Okay. You've also said, in talking about the Flores decision, that it's a loophole. And in your written testimony, you called it burdensome court opinions. You do recognize that those opinions are based on constitutional protections, do you not?
The reference in the testimony was to a whole variety of court cases.
I'm talking about your written testimony where you spoke about Flores as a burdensome court opinion. Those may impose some burdens on you because the Constitution protects liberty and puts limitations on when the government can detain people.
Sir, the Constitution does not say that families can only be detained for 20 days.
That's what the Flores decision says, and it's based on the Constitution, is it not? And it's a law that you're required to follow, correct? You took an oath.
The Flores settlement...
Are you required to follow that law?
Would you like me to answer the question, or you want to just yell at me? Because it's up to you.
I'm asking you.
And I'm trying to answer it, so would you like to hear it?
That you respect and honor in the work at the department. That's a yes or a no.
The Flores settlement requires us to write a regulation, which we have, and it's out for public comment. We are following the law to the letter.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. You've also said repeatedly and again today that there is no department policy for separation of children. You remember you just said that?
Yes, sir. There is no comprehensive policy to separate
families. You remember,
families.
of course, that we came to receive through a Freedom of Information Act request from Open Government, a memorandum that was written to you on April 23, 2018. You've seen this memo, correct?
Yes.
And in fact, it gives you a bunch of options that the department can engage in. And the final option, option 3, says, and I quote, DHS could also permissively direct the separation of parents or legal guardians and minors held in immigration detention so that the parent or legal guardian can be prosecuted pursuant to these authorities. You remember reading that?
We have the authority to do that, yes.
That would be child separation, and it goes on to say zero tolerance. This is that, President used that term, zero tolerance, right? Do you remember reviewing that?
I do, but you're confusing a variety of topics, which I'm happy to walk you through.
And then in the memo, they ask someone, I assume it's the secretary, to pick one of the options. And option 3 is redacted. My first question is that your signature affirming option 3?
I can't see that, and I don't remember which it is, but the option that I agreed to is that we would uphold the law equally against anybody who broke it. If you were a single or if you were a parent.
I have limited time. Option 3 in this memo, written for you, which this is signed, option 3, which is redacted, option 3 is in fact the option that was provided to you that I just read, permissively directing the separation of parents or legal guardians and minors held in immigration detention. So although you've said, and this isn't a question, it's a statement, although you've claimed publicly that you didn't know anything about a family separation policy and you tweeted about it, you signed off on a memo authorizing this practice described as zero tolerance. Whether you think it's legal or not, you authorize it. And so this notion that you have no responsibility for it, you reviewed it, it was offered to you as one of 3 options, you picked it. This is what it results in, because I went to the border. This is a disgrace that belies our values as a country. And to see those children and have spoken to them and to spoken to their parents who didn't know where their children were, this doesn't reflect who we are. And I find the suggestion that it was sort of something you didn't know about when you've signed off on a memo authorizing it, a policy which does violence to our basic founding values and to our understanding that children do best when not separated from their children. And so I would ask Madam Secretary, when we passed the fiscal 19 authorization bill, there were 15 amendments that were made law that involved family separation that require the agency to do a number of things, including regular reporting, mental health services, a number of prohibitions. Are you familiar with those amendments that were passed into law and signed by this Congress?
There were amendments passed into law, yes, sir. I can't
So I would ask you, will you commit to give me a written response as to the status of every one of those requirements that we passed and the President signed? Because my understanding is none of them have happened.
Happy to give you a status.
Thank you. And to be clear, Madam Secretary, my outrage is not at you. It's at this policy and this administration's behavior as it relates to our responsibility to continue to be a place that people can come to seek asylum, to seek refuge, to seek protection. It is the crown jewel of our immigration policy, and it has been diminished and it has betrayed American values in the way that it's been executed. And finally, Mr. Chairman, I would ask unanimous consent that this article, newly uncovered memo suggests Kirstjen Nielsen lied to Congress about family separation, be made a part of the record.
Will be made, without objection, made
I'd
part
ask
of the
that
record.
this article, transgender immigrant who died in ICE custody was beaten and deprived of medical attention, family says,
Objection,
part of the
made
record.
part of the record.
I'd ask that this report entitled Trump's 10 Cities Are an Enormous Waste of Money, There Are Better Options, be included as part of the record.
Without objection, be made a part of the record.
This article, The Final Hours of Jacqueline Calmacan, the Guatemalan girl who died in Border Patrol custody, be made a part of the record.
Without objection.
I'd ask that this article, Where Family Separation Began, a case in El Paso shows Flores is the solution, not the problem, be made a part of the record.
I just said without
Thank you.
objection.
I'd ask this article called Careless Cruelty. Civil servants said separating families was illegal. The administration ignored us. Be made a part of the record.
Without objection.
I'd ask that this article entitled Families Are Still Being Separated at the Border Months After Zero Tolerance Was Reversed. Be made part of the record.
Without objection.
I'd ask that this article entitled Trump Administration Weighs New Family Separation Effort at Border. Be made a part of the record.
Without objection.
That this article, U.S. Still Separating Families at the Border When Children Are U.S. Citizens. Be made part of the record. And a report just last night or 2 nights ago from ABC News, Dying for Salvation, a detained migrant's desperate plea for medical attention, a father of 6 children.